Radio, the voice of Oyo State.
Here we stand as a people with one song, with one voice. We're a nation undivided and poised. We will take a stand and build our land in faith to defend what is ours. Here we are as a people with one heart for one cause. We're determined to rebuild and restore. Where freedom reigns and truth prevails, our land where there's hope for us all. Our land where there's hope for us all. We'll defend our land. We believe in this nation, and we know we'll get there. We'll defend our land. We believe in Nigeria and the promise she holds, and that one day we'll shine like the sun. We're a great nation.
Good morning to you all, and I think it's still in order to greet ourselves Happy Easter, even though it's just passed 2 days ago. This is the Business and Life series on Aloore Radio, and we're transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat, Agodi, Ibadan. You can join us on our social media handles: www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, all you need to do is search for Aloore Radio, and our website is www.aloreradio.com, and our mobile number is 090-3985-3731. I'll take that again: 090-3985-3731. And today we want to try something on the session. We want our listeners to actually call in, as part of the session that we'll be having today. We're treating a very important topic, and we would like to hear your contributions. We would like to have your questions, if you have any, if you fall into the category of running a business, and this particular topic we're dealing with today affects you, and you want to ask certain questions as to what you can do, or you want to share your experience with us, we would like to have you on board. So we're going to, towards the end of this session, we're going to open the phone lines so that we would be able to take your questions and your contribution. So, our topic this morning is quite interesting. We want to look at the effects of brain drain on businesses, especially our own businesses here in Nigeria, our own businesses here in Oyo State, for instance. We want to see, so this brain drain phenomenon, what exactly is the impact it is having on us as business owners. We want to look at it from the angle of business owners, even though it's affecting even those of us who are consuming either product services from businesses, but we want to look at it from the angle of the business owner. What are the effects it is having? How can we mitigate those effects? What are the solutions we can bring on board to be able to keep our businesses running effectively as they should, so that we can ultimately achieve our goals and our objectives for running or opening that business. So this morning, my name is Oluwatoyin, and I will be taking us on this particular topic, the effect of brain drain on businesses. And I would love to lay a good foundation so that we're clear about what this brain drain is all about. And if I may say that there's another terminology for the brain drain, which is now what is called the Japa phenomenon. Suddenly everybody wants to leave, but of course there are certain things that are causing this. There are certain factors that are responsible for this. So I want us to start by understanding that the business landscape is changing, or if I may dare say, has changed drastically over the time, and particularly at this time that we're living in, that landscape continues to change. So if you've been in business for the last 10-20 years, you bear witness with me that business is not run today the same way it was run 10 years, 20 years, 15 years ago, because the landscape is changing and it's doing that constantly. There are certain factors that have been introduced, there are certain things that have come in and has completely altered that business landscape. And whether we like it or not, there will constantly be changes in the business landscape. So the way we're running business now is not the same way we'll run business in the next 5 years. It's not the same. It's definitely not the same way we'll run business in the next 10 years, because things continue to evolve. For instance, the advent of technology is causing a rapid change in that landscape. So a lot of things will continue to affect how business is done. So if you're just about to get into business, or you just started your own business, or you've been running your business for a while, you will do well to pay attention to these trends that are causing changes in the landscape of the business world. Okay, so that's why we're bringing these topics, so that we can be better prepared, and we can be better equipped to handle these changes. I've seen situations where businesses or business owners did not evolve with the changes and of their time, and as a result of that, those trends swept them away, swept them off. And I mean, both from small businesses to medium to large businesses have been swept off because they did not pay attention to the trends. They did not evolve with the changes that were occurring in that business landscape at that period in time. There are very many examples that you and I are so aware of. In fact, there are some brands that you and I have used in times past that are no longer existing. And there are some that are still existing, but we don't even know they're existing because they're struggling. And yet they used to be the market leaders just a few years ago. I mean, so what could drastically have happened that market leaders just a few years ago are now even struggling to survive? And some of us are not even aware. Some of us who were consumers of that same brand are not aware that those brands are still even available today. So this morning we want to look at what are the effects of the brain drain on businesses, especially for those of us who are running businesses and for those of us who are about to get into the that business thing. You're about to start your own business. What are the things we need to be aware of as we're about to kick off now? So brain drain, or what is also known as the Japa wave, we need to look at it. And like I put here, I said the brain drain will change the nature of work and cause many businesses and organizations to rethink their approach to recruitment, talent acquisition. It is causing that landscape to change again, right? The brain drain is causing a change in the nature of work, and it will definitely force businesses and organizations to rethink their approach to recruitment. So recruitment cannot be done like it used to be done. Talent acquisition cannot be done the way it used to be done. Talent retention, which is very important, cannot be done the way it used to be done. So it's going to force a rethink, and that's why we need to now start rethinking what is going to be. And listen, this morning you may think to yourself, oh, I run a small business. As long as you are not the only one, if it's a business that is just only you, then you're not acquiring any talent. You don't have any employee, you don't have anybody. But you can't remain like that forever. The beauty of business is that it evolves, is that you get bigger. At least when it used to be only you, in a few years down the line, you should at least be able to employ 1, 2, 3 more people, so that the business has expanded. So you will definitely at some point need to bring people, what we call human resource, into your organization, into your business. And so this morning we want to see what has happened, or what is happening, and what is the effect of this brain drain on our businesses. And let me also remind you, whether you are a small business, a small scale business, or even a large organization, every business is being affected by the brain drain. Every single form of business, every single size of business is being affected by the brain drain currently. So what can we do of this topic this morning? So we'll start by saying that we are living in the work settings used to be like, and how work was expected to be done. We just had that mindset. We just had that thing that, okay, work has to be this way. But when the pandemic hit, and a lot of things were altered, a lot of things had to change. Particularly, movement became largely restricted. And economic activities still needed to go on, even though movement was restricted. And so certain businesses had to continue operating, whether we liked it or not. There's some organizations, or there's some businesses or services that they call essential services. There's some businesses that even at that period of time, they needed to just keep working. They needed to just keep operating. And, so we needed to now look at the adjustments. So as a result, adjustments had to be made to how work was done. And then we came up with the concept of essential workers. Yes, they had always been there, but we now have to emphasize it a lot more, that there are people who are called essential workers and non-essential workers in certain settings. For instance, we know that medical people, they are essential workers. They needed to just be there for us. Given that it was even a health pandemic that was in the mix that was happening at that period in time. But apart from the health workers who were always essential workers, some other businesses needed to keep running. And so in those businesses, there was a distinction between people who needed to be on site, people who needed to be at work, and some who didn't need to be at work, who could work remotely. Right? So the advent of remote work, all right, also started. So people could work from their homes or work from distances. They did not need to show up physically in the office environment. but they could still get the work done. And all that was needed, all that was required was that whatever deliverables they had, whatever it was that they were doing, they just needed to know how to bring them, deliver them on time, in due, with according to whatever the deadlines were. And lo and behold, it was working. A lot of organizations preferred even to start doing remote work, and it changed the landscape basically. All right, but the pandemic did more than just change the landscape of the work environment. All right, sadly, people died. A whole lot of people died, and that's globally, the world over, and this greatly affected labor supply. All right, there were countries where we just had people dying in droves, people dying by the day. It was just affecting people. Some were badly affected, that even though they did not die, but the state their health is in is no longer as tip top as it used to be. Now all of this changed the landscape of business, especially when it comes to human resource in business. All of this changed the way we saw work. The pandemic changed the mindset of many, even of employees, and they decided, look, I've had enough of this kind of job. I'm not doing this work anymore. And even, so a lot of changes happened because as a result of the pandemic. Some even dropped their careers to go pursue, careers in other industries, right? So this has greatly affected the labor supply, and now we have a huge labor shortage all over the world. I mean, it is not just local, it is global. We're talking of countries that hitherto up until now had never really, in that sense, experienced huge labor shortages, right? So they became also affected, and some of them was affected than even places where we did not expect, So let's go on a short musical break. When we return, we'll continue from where we just stopped, talking about what has changed the landscape of human resource in business, and how we're going to mitigate all of this. Join us when we come back soon. Series on Aloore Radio, transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat Agodi, Ibadan. Our social media handles that you can join us on: Facebook. You can join us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, just search for Aloore Radio. Our website is www.alooreradio.com. Mobile number is 09039853731. 09039853731. And like I said earlier, we will be opening the phone lines towards the end of the program, of the session, to accommodate a few questions and a few contributions, on this topic that we're looking at today, which is the effect of brain drain on businesses. Okay, Now, so where we got to before we went on that short musical break is how the pandemic affected the business landscape globally, and how people either died. A lot of people died, and we need to bear in mind that a lot of these people that died were also actually putting in working, part of the labor market, either working somewhere or trying, so a lot of people died. It was so sad. And this, has greatly affected labor supply, like we mentioned before we went on that break. And now because of that, we have huge labor shortages around the world, massive labor shortages around the world. And like I said, countries that we never heard of having massive labor shortages, we now started getting the reality that they were adversely affected. The United Kingdoms, the United States, Canada, and especially the European belt. A lot of countries in Europe right now, as I speak to you, are offering money to skilled, unskilled workers, even professionals, to come over to their countries to work. I mean, that's how bad the pandemic, hit those countries. And for some of the countries, it wasn't just pandemic. It was a combination of the pandemic and also with an aging combined rather with an aging population. When certain countries have their larger demographics of their population older than 65 years and above. I mean, that means the larger population of those countries are are over 65 years and above. So who is going to be employed in the labor market? Who are the ones that are going to work the shortages in those spaces? So definitely they don't have a choice. They have to open up their gates for people to come in. So that's why we're saying, look, there is a mass exodus. There is, even in some countries, as low as unskilled, semi-skilled professionals. All of them are being brought in right now. So we're saying that no matter what your skill is, no matter what it is you learned, even artisans are being brought in mass to these countries, right? So it is definitely causing a brain drain locally, especially for businesses. Okay, so this morning, that's why we're looking at the brain drain. What are the effects? How can we mitigate this effect as business owners? What can we do? What are the solutions we can bring to this issue of brain drain, so that our own businesses will not collapse, so that our own businesses will also continue to run and do that effectively. Now, I want you to understand that the target of brain drain are the best and the brightest. Brain drain never attracts people who are not the best or the brightest. As much as they need people in all these countries, all over the world, they won't just take everybody. They want to poach the best and the brightest from your own communities, from your own organization, from your own societies, right? So the best and the brightest are the ones that are attracted. They are the ones that are targeted by the brain drain, phenomena. So what are those means of attracting them? Higher salaries, better working conditions, greater opportunities for career advancement. These are all the things that are used as bait for brain drain. So we need to understand that if the best and the brightest are the ones that are being attracted, then we have an issue. And it means that we'll get there, but it means that the best and the brightest that we could have employed as business owners are being targeted and are being taken out from our own reach and our own means. But at the same time, our businesses still need to go on. So we're going to look at a few solutions in a few minutes, but I want us to build this and get a good perspective as business people. So like I said earlier, whether you are a small business owner, a medium scale business owner, this is affecting you right now. and then we need to look for the solutions, right? The brain drain has affected and is affecting every sector, and we are feeling the impact even as consumers of goods and especially as consumers of services. Look at our banking sector, for instance. Look at the different issues we're having. It's not because it's simply because it is an effect of the brain drain. Not only the banking sector, so many other sectors. It's now much more difficult to fill vacant positions, especially in IT and in a few other very essential skills and roles in organizations, right? So even if you're small or medium scale, you are affected. And I need you to understand this, that your competition is not local, global. It never used to be an issue, but right now it's a big issue. As a business owner, as an organization, you must realize that your competition for human resource just became global. So if you are competing with global companies, companies in other parts of the world, internationally well-established companies for the same HR, then there is an issue. Then there are things that we need to, particularly pay attention to. All right. So right now I want us to go and see a few effects. What are some effects of brain drain on businesses locally? What are some of the effects that we might be feeling right now? What are some of the effects that we might be experiencing right now? And then to round off, we will look at what are the solutions, immediate solutions that we might be able to employ or deploy to be able to mitigate this, not totally eradicate it. Right now, it is not eradicatable, but we can mitigate it to an extent. We can minimize the effect to an extent. So what are these effects? First of all, the number one effect is reduction of human capital. Now, so because the best and the brightest have been attracted in current brain drain in the country, 70%, right? 70%, that is huge because it's affected. And the truth is, if they have the opportunities, they will also move because they can't see a future, in the businesses going on. So what they need to do is they will also look for possibilities of being able to move. Now, so the first effect is reduction in human capital, and we cannot joke with that. Human capital is very, very important to business. Yes, I know that right now businesses you can do online, there's some businesses, but even at that, as much as you do so losing talent and expertise can adversely affect your company's competitiveness, affect your company's profitability. It can affect the future of that company, the future success of that company. So we need to understand that human capital is very, very huge. Now, another effect, before I go there, let me give a few examples. I have friends who run, some technical companies, they're into IT, they're into different things. And recently, they've been trying to fill positions, and it has been as difficult, in fact, more difficult than it has ever been. Trying to fill positions. It's either people show up and they do not have a clue about what. It's not that they won't show up. Yeah, by the time you throw adverts out there and say, oh, there's a job opening, you'll find people show up. But out of those who show up, not 1% of them have the required skills to be able to work, to fill those roles or, work in those positions. So what do you do? So I have a lot of examples like that. So human capital, loss of human capital is the number one effect. Then number two, reduced productivity as talented professionals have gone. You don't need to understand that business is beyond just the activities, it's beyond just doing something. You want to do it excellently well. You want to do it better than your competitors. That's the only way you have an edge, except you just want to run something that, whether it's profitable or not profitable, it makes no difference. And you can't run that as a business person. As someone who is a serious minded business person, you want to stand out, and the only way you can stand out is by having professionals or people who can work and bring out, and cause that to be productive, cause your business to be productive. And the truth is that when you look at the business organizations, right, who drives innovation, who drives productivity? The human resource, highly experienced employees, people that right. Let's move on. So what's the number 3 effect of the brain drain on businesses, on our businesses locally? The third effect is it becomes more challenging to do recruitment and retention efforts. More challenging recruitment and retention efforts. The truth is that it becomes a whole lot more challenging to recruit. Now, where you used to have 10, have to choose between, say, 10 candidates that qualify, now you probably will not be able to choose more than between 2 candidates that qualify, or in some cases only one might qualify, but you don't have a choice. So it becomes a lot more challenging, not just for recruitment drives, but also to retain those who have been recruited. It becomes a lot more challenging, because in the process of trying to retain them, they are attracted, they are enticed away by more better working conditions and better environment, as it were. According to the Society of Human Resource Management, the average cost per hire across companies and industries has become higher. The average cost, because you need to understand that when it comes to hiring, you're spending money to hire. You're spending money to hire workers. It has become a lot more expensive. As a business person, you are not just, you can. There's some roles you can't just put out vacancy on the board and put by the roadside. There's some roles you really have to work with HR organizations to be able to fill. So it's a whole lot higher. Now, the fourth effect that the brain drain is having, on our businesses locally is higher training and development cost. This is what I mean by that. Now the best and the brightest have been attracted. They've gone. So you will now need to bring in people that may not totally fit in that position. Now, so you now have to spend money on training. Ideally, as a business, you should spend money on training, but you would have to spend more on training, because you have to bring them up to the standard that can work in that organization. And not just that, now spend the money you would have spent to just sustain their productivity. So you're spending money to upgrade, to train to upgrade, and then you're spending money to sustain productivity. Do you understand? So it's a whole lot. So higher training and development costs is also a big challenge. That is in the case that you even have, or you're able to find some people to fit into those roles. Now, I want us to quickly go over those solutions so that we can, open up the phone line and get contributions, get some feedbacks, and get some, if you're a business person and your experience in HR, human resource recruitment, so let's just go over some of those solutions that we begin to employ as businesses and business owners. Now, the first solution I'm going to mention, I'm going to talk about that first solution, and we'll open the phone lines for a while, and then I'm going to give us the rest of the solutions. Now, businesses and organizations will need, like I said at the beginning, that's the first solution, to rethink their approach to recruiting and retention. You need to rethink it. You need to sit down. You need to re-strategize. How do I do we as a business recruit and retain those that we're able to even bring in? So to start with, when it comes to rethinking, you need to begin to think out of the box. You need to begin to think, out of the way it has always been. You need to start thinking a bit wider. You need to start thinking a bit more inclusive in your approach to recruitment. You can't push it out the way it's always been. You will not find the best. You will not find what is suitable for your organization. You are not likely to. So you need to begin to rethink this. What are some other strategies? For instance, do we need to? Yes, experience is quite important, but how much experience do we really need? Because one of the things when it comes to recruitment is, organizations put adverts out there and they're saying, 4 years experience, 10 years experience, 15 years experience is required. Can you still go in that route? Can you still, be looking at 10 years, 15 years, 5 years experience? Or are there other ways you can help that person, that individual, to fit into that role and gain experience more rapidly than they normally would have? So we need to rethink our strategies. We need to rethink how we're going to, I've seen some small businesses that have a high turnover of employees. It is absolutely not good. It has a negative effect on your organization. So what do I mean by that? You get to that business today, you find 3 new faces. If you go in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you're likely to find new faces again, other than those that you have known there. And that begins to affect a lot of things. Some, no matter how you try to work on them, the customer experience they deliver is negative. And that's because, maybe you had no choice at that point. You just needed to bring somebody on board. So we need to start rethinking these things. Let me open the phone lines for a bit. So if you have any contribution or any questions, please, you can call in. The phone line is 090-3985-3731. I'll take that again. 090-3985-3731.